so Mondo was brought out, and I can't remember the name of the federation, but he did a show, and actually, I think did Mondo stay with me? I can't remember if he stayed with me or not, but we went to like a house party, and at the house party was like Supreme and Chaos. It was at GQ Money's, and at the time, I remember GQ Money was doing the Clockwork Orange thing.
Yep.
And he was calling himself Ultra Violent. And CZW's big tagline was, "We're ultra violent." And I was kind of ribbing him, going, "Hey, Mondo, you're not ultra violent. He's ultra violent. Look at this guy. He's ultra violent." Like just kind of needling GQ Money. And he never liked me to begin with. And he met something about the show, and someone mentioned about going to the show. And I was like, dude, I can't go to the shows because I after I'd gotten fired from XPW, I showed up to a training session maybe a couple months after that. That was at the XPW office. Rob wasn't there. And we trained, and Rob got word that I was there, and he just started throwing a hissy fit about it. Like, why was he here? You guys are betraying me. What are you doing? Like, he was just being such a little girl about it. So I was like, dude, there's no way I'm going to a show. He's going to flip out, you know?
Yeah.
GQ Money brought up, I got passes because they would flyer their shows. And so we had the passes. We did the show the next day, whatever show that we did. And then that night was their show. So we went to the show, and we went there and watched the show. I was up in the nosebleed section because I didn't want anybody to see me. And Mondo was like mingling with everybody and getting recognized and everything. He was loving it.
Yeah.
And I mean, the only reason I went there was to support the boys, because as much as I didn't like the management, you know, I still had a relationship with Chaos and Supreme and Dynamite D and everything. And we would still talk to each other and hang out with each other, and went to the show. And for whatever reason, stuff just wasn't going well during that show. It wasn't. And I got I'm trying to remember. I got a call on my cell phone from Dynamite D. And I answered it saying hello, and he said, "You need to go." I'm like, "What do you mean I need to go?" He goes, "You're causing a disturbance," or something to that effect. I'm like, "What do you mean I'm causing a disturbance?" He goes, "You being here is causing a disturbance." Apparently, Rob was flipping out because he found that I was there. And now that I think about it, yeah, it wasn't like I was hiding. When I went to the ticket booth, one of Rob's office guys was working the ticket booth, and I jokingly said, he looked at me and his eyes got all big. And he was like, what was his name? We just called him a G-Man. That's all. His nickname was G-Man, because every other word out of his mouth was G. What's up, G? What's up? Like, everything was G. And he looked at me. He said something to the effect of, "You're not going to cause any problems, right?" I'm like, no, I'm just here to support the show. And I put down my free pass. I slammed it. I went, "I'm here to see the greatest wrestling show in the world." Like that. And he was like, okay. And he gave me the tickets to go in. He gave us the tickets to go in.
Yeah.
Or he allowed us to go in. So now that I think about it, that's how Rob knew I was there. And then I get the call from D. And back then, I was an angry kid. I wanted to, I had this "I'll be damned" attitude. Like, you're not going to tell me what I'm going to do kind of thing. Which I think a lot of like 20-something-year-old guys are that way to a certain extent. But when it came to Rob tried to act like he was a tough guy, and he would try to be intimidating to people. And working for him and working with him, he didn't like confrontation. He didn't like if someone would show up at the office and wanting, to get paid for whatever they did, and he didn't have the money. It was like, "Hey, Billy, go out there and just ask him to leave." Okay, I'd go out there and ask him to leave. He never wanted confrontation. And when I got that call from Dynamite D, I saw red. I was like, motherfucker. Like, and then why is or D told me that he's getting mad at all the boys, and I just remember, why are you getting mad at those guys? Those guys had nothing to do with this. And so I called Kevin Kleinrock on his cell phone, and I think his wife answered. And I started telling her, "You need to tell Kevin and Rob not to yell at the boys. This is bullshit. If he wants to yell at somebody, yell at me." It was just, again, I don't know where I got the balls to be that way. It was stupid. It was just stupid all around.
Mhm.
And I left. So I left, and the very next day, I got a call from Johnny Webb, and Webb and I mean, we were cordial to one another, but it wasn't like we had a relationship where we would talk to each other on the phone. We were never that way. So
Yeah.
getting a call from Webb was like, well, why is Webb calling me? So I started talking to him, and he said, so I heard you didn't like my match. And that night he wrestled Shane Douglas, and the match was horrible. It was a horrible match. I later found out, like, and you could tell Webb's knees. I don't know if it was his knees or one knee, but his knee was killing him. He always had knee problems, and so he had to get knee surgery. But it wasn't a good show. You could tell Webb's knees were really, really hurting him and everything. And we were just talking, and he goes, I've always liked you, Billy. We've always gotten along, but you need to watch yourself. I'm like, what do you mean I need to watch myself? He goes, Rob, because Rob would, make threats all the time to people and yell and blah, blah, blah. He goes, this one essentially was like telling me this is different. You need to watch yourself. I don't want to see you get hurt. I was like, okay, thanks, man. Didn't think anything of it. And then I want to say, was it a week later or 2 weeks later? That's when I had the attack on me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when the attack happened and I saw those guys, I knew exactly why they were there and who sent them. I've read, or I've been told that, the reason I got attacked was because I owed bookies money. I've never bet a game in my life. I don't bet. I go to Vegas. If I lose $20, I start sweating bullets. I don't bet. I'm not one of those guys. Just all these other reasons why, like, it couldn't have been Rob who sent these guys. It was Rob. I know he won't admit it now. Or I mean, he's never admitted it. That it's all folklore and whatnot. But yeah, it was the attack happened, and after the attack happened, originally I was done wrestling. Like, my parents were just like, specifically my dad was just, you got to stop this bullshit. This is getting out of hand. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I was going to move to Georgia where my parents lived at the time, and I was agreeing to move to Georgia. One of the nights I was just by myself, and I was thinking, I'm not running. I'm not going to run. I'm not running. I'm not. No, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to stay. I'm staying. And so I had that conversation with my parents about that. Like, they weren't happy about that, but I'm like, no, I'm staying in California. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to run from this. And talked to Zandig and everything, and told him what happened. And the next show was going to be, essentially less than a month later, that's when I was doing the Zandig Tournament of Survival, the Tournament of Death, or whatever it was. Yeah, that's when it was like 3 weeks later I was in it. And I did that just because, just me being me and my way of thinking, not because I like deathmatch wrestling or anything like that, but because it was, essentially Rob, the guy who did this. You're not going to stop me from doing what I want to do. You're just not. This is what I love to do. And nothing's going to stop me from doing it. So I actually volunteered to be in that one. I was like, dude, put me in that match. Put me in that tournament. And Zandig's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, put me in it. And
I actually just rewatched that show, and and the match, obviously the first match you had against Adam Flash, who is another guy that I absolutely love to watch. That was a pretty much a quick roll up onto the next round. The next round was, Sick Nick Mondo. And he, like, to me, that was pretty much like, back then, that was like seeing a dream match. You know what I mean? Like, you versus Mondo, and you know what I mean? Like, that to me was like, all right, that's right on point. And one of our viewers just wants to know, how was your match with Mondo, and your thoughts on him? I can tell you how the match was, Facebook user. It was fucking phenomenal. But I'll let Messiah take that one.
No, thanks. I appreciate that. I love Mondo. Mondo is a great guy. And I've said this before, and I'll continue to say this. Like, Mondo has my utmost respect. just from the simple fact, I mean, he already has it because of, you know, his work and what he does and just the kind of individual that he is and human being that he is. But when he said that he's retiring, he retired. It wasn't like, and no disrespect to like Terry Funk or anything like that or whatever, but when he's like, I'm done, because his mindset was, I've done everything that I've wanted to do. And he knew that, especially with the spots or the stunts, whatever you want to call them, that he was doing, it was just going to escalate and escalate and escalate until he was probably dead, you know, or until he was working with somebody that died. Because Mondo's aspirations were never to be, you know, a WWE champion or be in the WWE. He wanted to be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
He loves making movies. I mean, now he works for AEW. But he wanted to be a filmmaker, and he's made some really good documentaries about himself that I've really enjoyed.
Yeah,
and
the Unscarred one I really enjoyed. I'm trying to find how I can get a copy of the trade, but in Australia, it's like it's a lot harder to get it. You know what I mean?
I know that it's on like Amazon Prime. That's how I watched it, was Amazon Prime.
Yeah, but for us, we have an Australian Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a massive kerfuffle, like, to put it mildly. But
he I mean, working with him, as far as working with him wrestling wise, Mondo's one of these guys very much like myself, where he would have this idea for a spot, and the spot usually ended up with him getting hurt, or it was him taking the brunt of it, because with him. Because like Homeless Jimmy, not to put him in the same category as Homeless Jimmy got over because Jimmy would just get the crap kicked out of him. He would put himself in these in XPW. His whole thing, he never won a match, but he was one of the most popular guys there because when you watched Jimmy, you knew he was going to get the crap kicked out of him, or he was going to do some outlandish spot. Mondo. He could work, he could do these spots, and he came up with some really ingenious stuff. And he was just easy to work with. Every now and then you might get like this, you know, random like kick that would go in your face or something like that. But working with him was a pleasure. He and I had when he and I wrestled each other for the first time in CZW again, I didn't know who Mondo was. I had no idea. But apparently working with him was, or John was telling me that it's a dream match. I was like, okay, you know, I'm up for it. Cool. And working with him was super easy. And then I got to wrestle with him out here in California, where we had our match. And that's the one that really put a spotlight on us, as far as like, hey, if you dig deathmatch wrestling, or even if you don't dig deathmatch wrestling, watching this match, you'll appreciate this. Because we had wrestling in there, we were teasing things. We weren't just, you know, as Zandig would put it, you know, slash and, you know, just I get light tube and hit you with light tube, and you know, there was a lot of thought put into the matches Mondo and I had with each other, and
intelligent wrestling as well
as much as we could, and doing the one at Tournament of Death again. That was just for Mondo. I mean, I feel bad for him because again, you know, you're wrestling 3 times in a row. Yeah. You're going over, and I was like, dude, no, I really want to, you know, let me really do some stuff in this thing, you know, because he could have easily said, no, I don't want to do this much because I got to wrestle wife beater, and that's like, you know, you're fighting an uphill battle with that one anyway. Not because wife beater isn't good, but because, you know, he has all these ideas as well, and he could have just easily asked to take a night off with me, but he would, you know, he was just like, no, let's go out there. This is your first match back. Let's turn it on a little bit here and see what we can get out of it. So, I mean, Mondo has my utmost respect. He's one of the guys I enjoyed wrestling the most.
Yes. And obviously, you talk about coming back after the attack, and you know, and everything going on. How long was a police investigation going on? Was that something that you were pursuing with the authorities, or was that something that you were just wanting to let it go? And
honestly, as far as I was told, and I wish I could tell you the guy the guy that was in charge of the investigation. He was a really good guy. He and I talked. Every now and then, and during this point too, I moved to Philly, so I wasn't in the state anymore. But he would keep in contact with me. And one of the last conversations I had with him, because his thing was, he goes, "We all know Rob Black sent these guys, but and I know a lot of guys are like, why wasn't he ever questioned or anything like that?" And I understood the sheriff on this. All right, we go there, we're going to ask him, what is he going to say? I had nothing to do with it, because we didn't have any proof or anything like that. But it came down, he told me it came down from higher ups above his pay grade to leave Rob Black alone. And that was because they were then going to start, or they were in the process of getting ready to, the government was going after Rob for, or John Ashcraft, and they were going after him for distributing obscene material through the U.S. mail.
Yeah.
So essentially it was just leave him alone. And they did. And I never pressed it. I wasn't one of these guys who was like, I need justice. I'm very much, maybe to a detriment. I'm very much, whatever, it's okay. It is what it is.
It's not going to bring the thumb back. It's not going to.
Yeah, it's not. And I'm not one to like dwell on it or anything like that. In fact, dude, I couldn't even tell you the date that it happened. Like I just, when it comes to things like that, whether it's, people close to me passing away and stuff like that, I can't tell you the dates. Like in my phone, I have reminders for like when my mom passed away, but I don't know the date.
Yeah.
My brain doesn't work that way for whatever reason. And, not having the thumb, it is what it is. The biggest issue I have is maybe tiny ketchup packets and trying to, tie my daughter's shoes. Other than that, I'm fine, man. Like I don't have any problems.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, look, your time in CZW as well. You were put in a situation where you were given the Ironman Championship, and then shortly after winning the Ironman Championship, you beat Justice Payne for the world champion and became CZW dual champion. And it was almost like history repeating itself.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, crap, it's only going to be a couple weeks before I get fired. But no, they again, I don't know what the decision was behind that. I didn't really have any power or say so in CZW. In fact, the first time I won, or I won the CZW Heavyweight Championship was in that 64-minute match I had with Flash, Mondo, and Payne. And as far as I knew, Payne was going to go over, and basically, I think the idea was going to be, or the original plan was that it was going to go to a draw. But then knowing the Philly crowd, both John Zandig and Justice Payne were like, they're going to crap all over this. They're especially if we go 60 minutes, they are going to crap if we don't have an actual winner. So the decision was then made to have Mondo go over Flash for the Ironman, and then myself over Payne for the heavyweight. And I was like, are you guys sure? And keep in mind, I'd only been there for like 3 months, 4 months, you guys sure? Like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. I was like, okay. And Payne, took me aside and just told me, you're going to go over me for the heavyweight title. I was like, you sure? He's like, yeah. And I've probably talked myself out of going over many times than I care to admit, because I'm always like, are you sure? Really? That's what you want to do? Like, okay, cool. All right. Because I just assume people are always going to crap